Have you ever felt that you are your own worst enemy? That somehow you are silently sabotaging your own happiness, not with big mistakes, but with the words that come out of your mouth every day? Do you find yourself repeating phrases that sound strong, like, "That's just how I am," or "It is what it is," but deep down they keep you stuck, feeling like you're building walls where there should be doors to your future? What if I told you that the prison isn't in your circumstances, but in the sentences you use to describe them, and that the key to your freedom is recognizing them? The truth is, some people don't need enemies to destroy their lives. They do it themselves, one careless sentence at a time. It's not with scandals or dramatic failures, but with simple everyday words that sound bold, confident, and maybe even wise. But beneath that surface lies fear, pride, and stagnation, disguised as strength. You've heard these phrases before. Maybe you've even said them today, without and thinking. And every time we repeat them without realizing it, we trade awareness for ego, curiosity for certainty, and most dangerously of all, growth for comfort. Stoic philosophy gave us a powerful warning. The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts. But what if it's not just the thoughts? What if it's our words, these casual phrases we use to defend and define ourselves, that are painting the picture of a limited life? In this video, we are not here to shame anyone. We are here to wake up. Because the difference between wisdom and ignorance isn't in how much you know, but in how honestly you are willing to listen, reflect, and change. We are going to dive deep into the 15 phrases that silently destroy your potential. You may recognize a few of them, and that recognition can be the first step to becoming someone stronger, sharper, and more fundamentally free. The clock is ticking, and every second you spend trapped in these patterns is an insult to your potential. Don't let your own language turn you into a waste of life. If you are ready to stop speaking from the ego and start building a life from awareness, the time is now. Subscribe. Let's start demolishing these walls together. 1. That's just how I am. What does stagnation sound like? Often, it presents itself as a declaration of authenticity. That's just how I am. This phrase is an ego's masterpiece, used as a barrier in tense moments to project an image of unshakable strength. However, this fortress is an illusion. Behind this supposed personal truth lies a deep resistance to facing the uncomfortable fact that we may need to improve. It's a defense mechanism that allows us to avoid the hard work of introspection and responsibility. This mindset directly contradicts the Stoic view of life as a constant refinement. As Seneca challenged us, as long as you live, keep learning how to live. Your identity is not a stone statue, it's a flowing river. To say, "That's just how I am," is to build a dam on that river, condemning it to stagnate. The psychologist Carl Jung warned that by refusing to examine our unconscious patterns, we allow them to dictate our destiny. The patterns we defend with this phrase, our impatience, our temper, are the chains of our unconscious. The antidote to this self-limitation is a shift in language and perspective. Start by questioning the premise of the phrase, "Is this really who I am, or just who I've gotten used to being?" Transformation begins by replacing venality with possibility. Swap the phrase for, "This is something I can work on." This change isn't weakness, but the highest act of self-respect, the courage to admit you are a work in progress. 2. That's how it's always been. Have you ever seen a promising idea get shot down by 5 words? That's how it's always been. This phrase is the anthem of inertia, uttered with an authority that invokes tradition and time. It sounds safe and responsible, but that's the trap. The phrase is not an argument but a reflex, a mental shortcut that spares us the discomfort of critical thinking. It's fear disguised as prudence. The real danger is that it calcifies systems, relationships, and minds. In companies, it stifles innovation. In families, it perpetuates toxic patterns under the guise of "it's our family's way." The history of human progress is a constant battle against the tyranny of "it's always been this way." Time alone does not confer virtue. Stoic philosophy offers a way out. Epictetus stated, "It is impossible for a man to learn what he thinks he already knows. By clinging to the past, we declare we know everything, closing the door to learning." Marcus Aurelius saw challenges differently. What stands in the way becomes the way. Resistance to a new idea is not a signal to retreat, but an invitation to grow. To escape this trap, become an agent of possibility. The change begins with a question, but does it have to be? Train yourself to replace the language of stagnation with that of evolution. Instead of "that's how it's always been," say, "I understand how this was done in the past, but let's explore if there's a better way now." By doing this, you claim your agency, recognizing that the past is your raw material, not your prison. 3. I don't care about that. What does apathy sound like? Often like a simple, "I don't care about that." Said casually, it seems like a focusing tool, a way to filter the noise of an overloaded world. But this harmless-sounding phrase is one of the most subtle agents of self-destruction. It signals a mind that is closing itself off, not because there's nothing left to learn, but because the will to expand has begun to die. Every time we say, "I don't care," we shut down an opportunity for growth. This indifference can spring from insecurity, fear, or arrogance. The result is the same. Curiosity, the lifeblood of a growing mind, is suffocated. And when curiosity dies, human connection is the next. Casualty. To say this to someone sharing their passion is the same as saying, "I don't care about you," building walls of emotional isolation. The Stoics saw engagement with the world as a duty. Epictetus reminds us, "We have 2 ears and 1 mouth, so that we can listen twice as much as we speak." Listening is not a passive act, but an active desire to understand. Indifference was the opposite of Stoic practice. True strength lies in engaging with the uncomfortable. The alternative is to reignite the flame of curiosity. The antidote is the courageous phrase, "I don't understand this, but I'd like to." This shift turns a barrier into a bridge. It requires humility and patience, but it opens the door to knowledge and deeper relationships. Take inventory of what you've stopped caring about. In those topics lies your next territory for growth. Choose curiosity over comfort. 4. I don't get all that deep stuff. This is the white flag raised in any conversation that dares to dive below the surface. It's a preemptive dismissal of any topic that requires nuance or reflection. In our culture of rapid information consumption, simplicity is sold as a virtue, and this phrase can seem like an act of pragmatism. However, this quest for simplicity is really a quest for comfort. Avoiding complexity doesn't make life simpler. It makes your thinking shallower. Life, at its core, is deep. Love, loss, purpose. None of these pillars of the human experience can be understood through simple formulas. By refusing to engage with depth, you condemn yourself to a life of reactivity, crumbling in the face of uncertainty. The Stoic philosophers built a robust system for navigating life's complexities. Epictetus declared that only the educated are free, referring to those with minds trained to wrestle with contradiction without losing their footing. For the Stoics, philosophy was essential life training. Seneca reminds us, "If one does not know to which port one is sailing, no wind is favorable." And how can you know your port if you never ask the big, deep questions? The alternative is to cultivate the courage to be a beginner. Instead of shutting down, embrace the humility of saying, "I don't understand this yet, but I'm willing to try." The goal isn't to have all the answers, but to ask better questions. When a conversation deepens, lean in, listen, let your mind stretch. In doing so, you become not just smarter, but more human and resilient. 5. I deserve better. In an age of empowerment, I deserve better has become a battle cry for self-esteem. It's what we utter when leaving a toxic job or an unfulfilling relationship. At its best, this phrase is an act of self-worth, a healthy boundary set by someone who knows their value. However, there is a dark and dangerous side to this declaration. When it's not backed by honest self-assessment, the phrase shifts from being about worth to being about entitlement. I deserve better can subtly morph into the world owes me more without me having to do more. It becomes a shield for the ego, protecting us from the fact that perhaps we haven't yet earned what we desire. Worth is not a feeling you declare, it's a result you build through effort, discipline, and character. The Stoics were opposed to this entitlement mentality. The focus was never on what the world owed us, but on what we owed ourselves in terms of virtue. Marcus Aurelius summarized it. Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one. Stop demanding and start embodying. True worth doesn't shout for recognition, it silently commands it. Seneca reinforces this. It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more that is poor. The turnaround happens when you transform this phrase from a demand into a question. Instead of declaring, ask yourself, what do I need to do to become worthy of what I desire? This question shifts the focus to your own power of action. It invites an honest inventory of your habits. Life doesn't respond to what you think you're owed. It responds to who you show up as every day. Build yourself into the person who attracts the life you want. 6. It's not my fault. Few phrases offer such seductive, immediate relief as, it's not my fault. In the aftermath of a mistake or conflict, these words are a balm to the wounded ego. They cast us as innocent victims of circumstance or the actions of others. But while blame offers momentary comfort, it does so at a terrible cost. Your power. The moment you assign blame externally, you surrender your agency. You become powerless, waiting for the world to change so your life can improve. Blame feels like movement, but it is pure stagnation. You get stuck in a narrative of injustice instead of writing your next chapter. Stoic philosophy is a radical antidote to the blame mindset. Epictetus famously said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." The Stoics didn't deny adversity. They refused to grant it power over their inner state. Responsibility is not the same as fault. Taking responsibility is not saying I caused this, but rather I am responsible for my response to this from this moment forward. The shift is to leave the courtroom of blame and enter the workshop of responsibility. Instead of looking for a villain, look for a lever of action. When things go wrong, replace the question, whose fault is it, with what can I do now? This question is the engine of progress. Seneca wrote that, "A gem cannot be polished without friction, nor a man perfected without trials." Every time you choose ownership over blame, you are polishing your character. 7. That's not my job. In today's demanding world, that's not my job can feel like necessary self-preservation. It's a boundary to protect against burnout, and sometimes it is necessary. However, the danger arises when this phrase becomes a daily creed, when it's your default reaction to any task outside your job description. It ceases to be a strategy for balance and becomes an agent of mediocrity. When this becomes your mantra, you silently trade your influence for comfort. You train yourself to avoid responsibility and play small. Over time, you become functional but forgettable. Stoic philosophy offers a different perspective on duty. For the Stoics, virtue, doing the right thing, is always your job. Marcus Aurelius did not see himself as above any task that served the common good. He wrote, "If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it." Character is not defined by what is required of you, but by what you require of yourself. The alternative is to cultivate a mindset of ownership. Instead of asking, "Is this in my job description?" ask, "Does this need to be done?" Seneca observed that luck is what happens when preparation meets opportunity. Opportunities for leadership arise when your integrity meets inconvenience and you choose to act. In a world of people saying, "That's not my job," the person who quietly says, "I've got this," becomes rare and valuable. 8. Trust me, I know. This phrase is a verbal power play meant to shut down debate and assert authority. It asks you to suspend your own judgment, but more often than not, it's a red flag for an ego that values being right over getting to the truth. The irony of overconfidence is that it often springs from ignorance. The Dunning-Kruger effect shows that people with low competence drastically overestimate their ability. They don't know enough to recognize how little they know. True experts are humble. The Stoics were champions of intellectual humility. They saw wisdom as a process of constant questioning. Epictetus considered the pretense of knowledge shameful because it blocks learning. Marcus Aurelius declared himself willing to gladly change if proven wrong because his loyalty was to the truth, not his ego. To escape this trap, practice holding your ideas lightly. Replace the language of certainty with that of exploration. Instead of "I know," try "My current understanding is." This invites dialogue. When challenged, pause and ask a question. Show you're more interested in understanding than in being right. The smartest people rarely say, "Trust me, I know." They're the ones who say, "Let's explore this together." 9. Smart people don't talk about their feelings. This is one of the most damaging lies our culture perpetuates. The idea that emotions are a sign of weakness, a deviation to be suppressed, is seductive to a mind that craves control. Emotional silence is worn as armor, a symbol of strength. However, this armor is brittle. Refusing to talk about your emotions doesn't make you strong. It makes you breakable. What is suppressed doesn't disappear. It builds up and eventually erupts in outbursts of anger, anxiety, or depression. Suppression is not discipline, it's denial. Many wrongly associate Stoicism with this suppression. But Stoicism is not about not having emotions. It's about not being enslaved by them. Marcus Aurelius examined his feelings to respond to them with wisdom. He understood you can only master what you are willing to face. The alternative is the courage of emotional integrity. True strength is being able to say, "That hurt me and I want to understand why." Emotions are not the enemy. They are messengers. They point to unmet needs and unresolved wounds. Carl Jung believed that emotion is the chief source of all becoming, the fuel for growth. Being emotionally aware doesn't make you fragile, it makes you whole. 10. I couldn't help it. This phrase is the surrender of personal will, the excuse we use when our emotions dictate our actions. "I couldn't help it" sounds like an admission of humanity, almost forgivable. But this phrase is a dangerous lie. In saying it, we abdicate our responsibility and declare ourselves powerless passengers in our own minds. In the short term, it protects our ego from guilt, but in the long run, it erodes our self-respect and power. Stoic philosophy is a declaration of war against this helplessness. Epictetus was sharp on this point. Any person capable of angering you becomes your master. If your emotions control your behavior, then whatever triggered them controls you. Marcus Aurelius echoed this. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. The alternative is to claim your power in the crucial space between stimulus and response. This is where your growth lives. When you feel a strong emotion rising, practice the pause. Breathe. Observe the feeling without merging with it. Emotional intelligence is not the absence of feeling, but the ability to feel anger without lashing out, to feel fear without running away. Replace "I couldn't help it" with the powerful truth: I felt it, I understood it, and I chose my response. That is power. 11. It is what it is. Of all the phrases, "it is what it is" perhaps the one that most resembles Stoic wisdom, which makes it doubly dangerous. At its best, this phrase represents the pinnacle of Stoic acceptance, the serene acknowledgement of what is outside our control. However, alarmingly often, it is used not as an act of wisdom, but as a cloak for resignation and passivity. It's the difference between actively surrendering to a greater force and simply giving up. When used as an excuse, it justifies staying in a hated job or a stagnant relationship. It's not peace, it's apathy masquerading as acceptance. The crucial Stoic distinction was between acceptance and passivity. They advocated for accepting what we cannot change, to focus all our energy on what we can, our own actions. Stoic acceptance is not an end point, it's a starting point. It's the clarity that allows us to ask, given this reality, what is the most virtuous response? Resignation uses reality as an excuse not to respond at all. Seneca warned, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste much of it." Transform this phrase from a trap into a tool by adding a powerful question. When you find yourself saying, "It is what it is," immediately follow with, "And now, what can I do?" This reintroduces agency. Instead of, "It is what it is," try reframing to, "This is where I am now. What's next?" Ask yourself honestly, are you releasing what you can't control or avoiding what you can? 12. Let me finish. The interrupter's mindset. We all know this person. As you speak, they are not listening. They are waiting for their turn to talk. They interrupt and talk over you. In their mind, they are contributing, but to everyone else, it feels like being steamrolled. Speaking without listening is not sharing, it's performing. This habit is destructive to connection. Trust cannot flourish where a person never feels heard. Growth is impossible when the goal is to win the conversation. People remember how you listened more than what you said. The silent presence of someone who listens is a rare, powerful gift. The Stoics understood that wisdom often resides in the space we do not fill. Epictetus reminds us we have 2 ears and 1 mouth, so we can listen twice as much as we speak. Listening requires humility, the setting aside of your need to be right. It's an act of self-command, especially in a disagreement. The alternative is to practice listening as a discipline. Enter each conversation with the primary intent to understand, not to respond. Pause. Allow for silence. Carl Jung said that the meeting of 2 personalities is like the contact of 2 chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed. Transformation happens in the exchange. When you listen first, your words gain a weight and resonance that constant talking can never achieve. 13. I just say what's on my mind. This phrase is worn as a badge of honor, a declaration of radical honesty. The person who just says what's on their mind presents themselves as real, raw, and brave. However, this supposed honesty is often a disguise for emotional laziness and a lack of discipline. There is a crucial difference between being honest and being rude. Virtuous honesty is rooted in clarity and care, considering the impact on the listener. Unfiltered bluntness values self-expression above all else, including connection and respect. That is not courage, it is impulsivity. The Stoics held the power of language, logos, in the highest regard. An undisciplined speech reflects an undisciplined mind. Seneca wrote, "It is a great thing to know the season for speech and the season for silence." The Stoics practiced the discipline of assent, not immediately agreeing with their own thoughts. The path to wiser communication starts with self-observation. Before you speak, pause and ask yourself, why am I saying this now? Instead of, I just say what's on my mind, adopt a new mantra. I think carefully about what I say because I know my words have impact. This doesn't make you fake. It makes you responsible. True authenticity is aligning your words with your deepest values. 14. Take it or leave it. This phrase is the ego's ultimatum, a declaration of rigidity uttered when we are criticized or asked to adjust. On the surface, it sounds like supreme confidence, the epitome of unbending strength. But this inflexibility is not strength, it's fragility. Take it or leave it is not a statement of self-knowledge, but of resistance to growth. It's a wall, built around a static version of yourself. The cost of this wall is connection and evolution. Eventually, people stop trying, and what was thought to be strength reveals itself as a path to isolation. Stoicism, while advocating for firm principles, never celebrated inflexibility of character. Its core practice is constant self-examination. Marcus Aurelius constantly questioned his own impulses, seeking to better align with virtue. Seneca captured the Stoic mindset. As long as you live, keep. Learning how to live. The alternative to this defensive posture is the courage of flexibility. This doesn't mean losing your core values. It means having the discernment to recognize when feedback is a gift. Instead of take it or leave it, practice saying, "This is where I'm at right now, but I'm open to hearing your perspective." Do not be afraid to outgrow your old self. You are ready for something deeper now. 15. People are too sensitive. When our words or actions cause a negative, emotional reaction, and we don't want to deal with our part of the responsibility, we reach for an easy, dismissive label. People are too sensitive. This phrase is a defensive power move. It places us in the position of the level-headed one in a world of fragile people. It effectively invalidates the other person's feelings and shuts down the conversation. But this attitude is not strong, it's limited. It's a refusal to engage with the complexity of human experience. To call someone too sensitive is often a coded way of saying, "I don't want to take responsibility for how I made you feel." Over time, this creates toxic environments where no one feels safe to be vulnerable. The Stoics were not anti-emotion, they were pro-clarity. They taught to observe emotions, our own and others, with attention, not contempt. Marcus Aurelius offered a practice for these moments. Whenever you are about to find fault with someone, ask yourself the following question: what fault of mine most nearly resembles the one I'm about to criticize? Before you label someone, ask yourself, why does their reaction bother me so much? The alternative is the practice of empathy and curiosity. Instead of judging the reaction, investigate it. Replace the phrase with a genuine question. "I can see this affected you. Can you help me understand why?" Seneca wrote, "Wherever there is a human being, there is an opportunity for kindness." Sensitivity isn't weakness, it's a signal. It indicates where wounds are and where values lie. By learning from it, you become wiser. Throughout this exploration, we have dissected 15 phrases that, despite their benign appearance, function as agents of erosion on the foundation of our character, our relationships, and our potential. We've seen how statements that masquerade as authenticity, "That's just how I am," wisdom, "That's how it's always been," or strength, "Take it or leave it," are, in fact, manifestations of fear, stagnation, and ego. Each of these phrases, when it becomes a habit, not only describes our reality, it actively creates it, limiting our growth. The common thread weaving through the wisdom of the Stoics like Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, and Epictetus, and the psychological insights of Jung, is a radical call to self-awareness and personal responsibility. They teach us that true strength lies not in rigidity, certainty, or suppression, but in flexibility, humility, and integration. We are not passive victims of our thoughts or emotions. We are the guardians of our inner world, with the power to choose our responses, refine our beliefs, and, most importantly, master our own speech. The alternatives proposed for each destructive phrase are not mere word swaps. They are paradigm shifts. Moving from "it's not my fault" to "what can I do now" is a transition from helplessness to agency. Shifting from "I don't care about that" to "I'm interested in learning" is a choice between stagnation and expansion. Wasi. The end of the day, the words we speak shape the lives we live. They reveal our discipline, our awareness, our fears, and our growth. You don't need to be perfect, but you do need to be honest with yourself. If any of these phrases made you pause and reflect, then that is the starting point. If this video resonated with you, if you felt that call to awaken, then join our community to build something real together. Subscribe to the channel to continue sharpening your mind and mastering your emotions. Hit the like button if you found value in this message so it can reach more people who need to awaken. Drop a comment below with the phrase you recognized yourself using the most. Sharing your reflection is an act of courage that helps us all grow. And share this video with someone you believe would benefit from this philosophy. The work doesn't end here. To continue deepening these principles, watch the next video that appears on your screen now. It was prepared especially for you. Thank you for being a part of Stoic Journal. Keep showing up, keep reflecting, keep becoming.